Here's imaginary numbers. Now, imaginary numbers were developed a long time ago. It's because people could do the square root of 16 and get 4, and they could take the opposite of the square root of 16 to get negative 4. Because what it meant is what times itself gives you 16. In this case, it was 4, and then we just took the opposite. That's how we got negative 4. Now we run into troubles when we get the square root of negative, because no number times itself. 4 times 4 doesn't equal negative 16, and negative 4 times negative 4 doesn't equal negative 16. So what we had to do is we had to come up with imaginary. Use your imagination. Can you imagine that? So what we are going to do is we're going to break it up into two separates. I know what the square root of 16 is. So what's this have to be? What times 16 equals negative 16? Negative 1. Anytime you have a square root of negative 1, that's where your imaginary comes in. The square root of negative 1 is equal to I. There we have an imaginary number. If you get anything out of your lesson, these are the two things you're going to get. Right here. Everything else is the same. Just know that if you have a negative inside of a radical, it's going to be imaginary. I know, I'm upset about it too. So how would I write this? What's the square root of 16? It's perfect. Show it off. And how do we represent square root negative 1? We write an I. And we always write the number and then I. So if you're writing something down, these two things you got to write down, folks. You got to. Okay, let's take a look at how it applies. Take a look at this equation. We know how to solve it. Divide. Now we get a negative 24. What's the next step? Square root both sides. We know we have how many solutions? So put a plus minus. Get in the habit of that. This is going to be x, the square root of x squared. We know that x times x equals x squared. Now, how about this? Well, we know it's imaginary because of the negative. So I'm going to write a square root negative 1. How can I break that up? What are perfections that will divide into it? 4 will. So let's go 4 times 6. Now let's simplify it. Don't forget your plus minus. The square root 1 represents an I. That's perfect. Show it off. Come on, baby. Put it in front. Perfect. Nope, you stay. Looks weird, doesn't it? Let's try another one real quick. See if you can do it. Stop the video and then come back to it. That's the easiest way. Okay, we got a negative. Square root both sides. This will be x. I know it's going to be imaginary. What perfection will divide into 8? I could rewrite it as 4 times 2. Perfect. Yes, show it off. Perfect. Nope, you stay. What am I missing? I forgot it. Plus minus. Don't forget. 2 solutions, 2 solutions, 2 solutions. Now we'll also add and subtract these things and multiply them. Let's add them. Well, geez, oh, how tough is this? 8 plus 2i. Now when you have a minus out front, you have to distribute it. So this becomes the opposite of each of these. So plus 7 plus 3i. Now you're going to CLT. Combine like terms. 8 and 7, 15. 2i and 3i. 5i. Done. Now, the other thing I told you to write down was I squared equals negative 1. Where that comes from is, think about it for a second. Square root of negative 1 is equal to I. If I square this based on theory, when you square a radical, you just get the negative 1. Well, square this side. That's where it comes from. So let's come over here and we're going to multiply. Now I'm going to show you my box method, but this is FOIL is what it is. So I get negative 36 here. Negative and negative give me 8i, 63i. Now here's the $1 million question. Negative 2 times 7 is 14. Negative 14, excuse me. So I get negative 14, and I times I is I squared. Well, the I squared is, dun dun dun, negative 1. So when I see I squared, it's a negative 1. What's a negative 1 and negative 14? Positive 14. And I said the diagonals will combine. Well, in this case, both diagonals will combine. So negative 36 and 14 is negative 22. 8 and 63 is 71i. Again, show this to mom and dad tonight at dinner or your brothers and sisters, and you will look super smart. Things to remember. Square root of negative 1 is equal to I. So if you have a negative inside your radical, you are going to have an I. I squared, anytime you have I squared, replace it with negative 1. And also plus minus, plus minus, plus minus, plus minus. Don't forget plus minuses on both lessons. Good luck. We'll talk tomorrow. Please, please, please take some time to try to understand some points on here, and we'll talk in class tomorrow. Thanks.